We are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mahone Bay Town Council meeting. We have all members of council here along with some staff, and we have some guests with us as well. At the end of the meeting, there will be an opportunity, a 10-minute period where persons who may be watching us from home are welcome to ask any questions they might have about any of the issues which are discussed tonight. Okay, you have an agenda, council, that was emailed to you. What is your wish for the agenda? Councillor Carver?
Oops, I'll move that it be accepted as circulated.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Now seconds. Move to accept the agenda as circulated. Are you ready for the question? Council is ready. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. The second item on our agenda is the minutes of the meeting of February the 25th, which was a regular council meeting. What would you like, Councillor Feeney?
Mayor, I'd move that the minutes of the regular meeting of February 25th, 2021 be approved as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor seconds. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor? Motion's carried. Let's go to the special meeting of March the 3rd. Councillor Carver?
I'll move that the minutes of March 3rd be accepted as circulated.
Thank you. Councillor Feeney, you second? Okay, moved and seconded to accept the minutes for the special meeting as presented. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? The motion is carried. Let's go to presentations. Chris Acom. I'm sorry, Councillor Carver.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm starting off on behalf of the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Partnership Society in my role as chair. And we all want to thank you for the opportunity to talk with council tonight as part of our outreach to all 5 municipal councils. This is to provide an update to the newly reconstituted councils and to meet the new people at the tables and to request renewal of municipal funding. So we have with us tonight Chris Acom and Carol Hipwell, who are our staff, senior safety coordinators. And I'm not sure if we have Staff Sergeant Paul Coughlin on with us. Maureen, no. This would be the point where Paul would say a few words about the importance of the relationship between the policing. Oh, Carol's going to speak.
I'm just wondering if we can get the PowerPoint put up.
Oh, yes.
Shared on
Excellent.
the screen.
Yeah. Yes, the PowerPoint should be up. Thanks. So this would be the point where Staff Sergeant Paul Coughlin would speak to the importance of the relationship between the policing services and the senior safety program. In particular, how it has relieved the policing services, RCMP and the Bridgewater Police, of taking calls from issues that really aren't policing issues at all. They refer to other issues. And that the collaborative relationship has been very valuable when they each can accompany each other on calls, so they're shared expertise. So Chris and Carol are going to talk about the program, and then we'll talk a bit about the funding, and then we can wrap up with questions. Over to you, Carol and Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Chris, just before you begin, I'm not going to count Penny's time, so you can have your full 10 minutes to tell us about your program.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could have the next slide, please. My name is Chris Acombe. I'm the full-time senior safety coordinator. For those of you who know me, you know I can kind of go on and on about the subject because I'm so passionate about it, but I'll keep it to the time that we're allowed. The Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program is a nonprofit community-based service that works closely with law enforcement and other partners to help meet the safety needs of older adults. We provide one-to-one service and community education programs, presentations, and referrals. We network with community partners and we advocate on behalf of seniors. Other programs we provide include the Vial of Life, the Senior Friendly Program, as well as many community outreach projects that you'll hear a little bit more about later on. We promote the Project Lifesaver program, which is a nonprofit search and rescue service that helps to reconnect lost loved ones with their caregivers. But the heart of the program is our one-to-one service, where we're helping seniors with their safety needs. Next slide.
And I'm Carol Hipwell, and I'm the part-time senior safety coordinator. And at the moment, I'm also covering as seniors legal navigator. We had a grant from the Law Foundation of Nova Scotia, a one-year grant. And so I kind of focus on some of the legal issues. But our service is available to anyone aged 55 or above. Anyone can refer somebody to the program. We get referrals from law enforcement, from community partners, and from community and from family members. It's a voluntary service and people can refuse the service if they don't want us. It is confidential and we require consent to share any information if we have to work with other agencies. And of course, we do fall under the realm of a duty to report in rare circumstances that we may have to do that. Next slide, please.
This beautiful graph that we've created here, it reflects that where the service is around our community. 44.5% of the population of Lunenburg County are 55 years or older. And this graph reflects our client base in 2020 across the 5 municipalities that we serve. It doesn't indicate the proportion of time served in each municipality, though, as each client's need is different. There were periods during the pandemic that comprehensive record keeping wasn't always possible, and we didn't tally every telephone call or email. But according to data collected, we received 339 new referrals last year, with a client base of 1,508, and we carried out 334 home visits or doorstep deliveries. We also distributed 520 vials of life and presented to roughly 170 individuals, either in person or online. This number was lower than in years before because of necessary public health regulations. Next.
So as you can see, and for all of us, the pandemic has created a source of ever-changing information and protocols. And so like other services, this has necessitated a really quick pivot to alternative ways to deliver our service. For instance, we had to limit our direct contact with clients, and we focused on community outreach projects, things like caring calls and the Warm Line out of Shelburne County Mental Health Association for isolated seniors, isolation care kits, art kits, and doorstep drop-offs to arrange meal delivery, and most recently the Mama Bears and the mindfulness boxes. An important consideration is that there is a real benefit to that direct contact because it allows us to get a real eyes on our most vulnerable seniors. And so there's lots of communication with all of our partner organizations to leverage services and to find solutions and supports for those who need it. Next. So one aspect of our service, as I mentioned, is legal accessibility for information and resources on topics like personal directives and estate planning. Yes, in this one instance, a couple in rural Lunenburg didn't have internet. They had and therefore no computer access, and they were concerned about the process and the documents that were required in order to access legal aid assistance for their wills. Some documents like marriage certificates are at times required to show a name change. And so searching out those sorts of things is something that I would do with those clients. And then follow-up might include actually accompanying a client to a meeting at legal aid or other service to act as kind of an additional source of clarification, an advocate. Some people are quite nervous, and then it allows me to help them with any follow-up and to remember the things that were discussed in the meeting. Another area that some are unaware of is the implications of common law relationships. And lots of people assume that that's a 50-50 split, blah, blah, blah. But it varies from province to province. And so some of our seniors are actually a little bit vulnerable if they're in a relationship where they're living with somebody else, but they don't have a registered partnership. So they can run into problems if their partner passes, and then the family might want them to move out or something like that. So I deal with the legal aspects of things. Go ahead, Chris.
I see that Staff Sergeant Cogman has joined us. Would you like to say a few words? No, I think he may be on mute.
I just saw a note that his microphone's not working, so.
Okay. So our next case study that we wanted to share with you was about supporting seniors to help them live safely at home and how it is a priority for our program. In one situation, we know a senior who has been connected to our program for many years. They've needed assistance with everything from completing forms, carrying out grants, to wellness checks. Staying at home for as long as they can has been their primary goal, and they have endured hardships to do it. A health crisis and a housing repair need was the most recent catalyst for our service. Working in partnership with other organizations, we were able to have the repair done and services increased. This person is very happy to be living at home and able to stay at home as long as possible. Raising awareness and supporting seniors impacted by elder abuse is a core component of our service. In this case study, a senior was reportedly assaulted by their primary caregiver, and the accused was removed from the home. An adult protection referral was submitted, but the senior was deemed to not meet the criteria of a person in need of protection. Vulnerable and alone, this person needed supports. With the help of the United Way, we were able to secure an emergency cell phone. We also set up food delivery, transportation, and other services to support the individual. We discussed elder abuse and ways to prevent it. In the end, the senior may choose to have their loved one move back into their home, but now they know who they can call for supports if needed.
And the final case study I'd like to share with you is another client was referred by a neighbor, a concerned neighbor, because they were being evicted for failure to pay rent. After speaking with the client, it was discovered that they had fallen, they had injured themselves and were being financially abused. The driver's license had been suspended, they needed home support, and they were living in squalor. 14 agencies and partners worked together, were involved in supporting this client. And one component of the service was a home cleanup that was funded by our program's emergency contingency fund at a cost of $75. And all of this meant that the person could have the safety risks mitigated, and home care services and continuing care were able to get into the home, and it was implemented without delay. So that shows the number of contacts we may need to have for any given client. Next, please.
Safety needs can be very complex, and they have a global impact on the lives of seniors, well, on all of us. Our program works one-to-one with many seniors to help them create and carry out their own safety plan. Our role is to support the client's right to make choices while offering information, resources, and supports. Next.
Actually, I sent it one early.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Thank you. We're efficient.
So we're very, very grateful to all the funding partners that make it possible for this fantastic service to exist in our county. In terms of our funding, the bulk of our funding comes from Department of Seniors and from the 5 municipalities. The Department of Seniors at $25,000 per annum, and the 5 municipalities collectively put in about $27,000. So that's roughly equal. The United Way was a very early funder and has gradually diminished its donation in the interests of their philosophy of weaning projects off their funding so that they could go on to other projects. And this year, as Carol said, we have had the privilege of the generous donation or funding from the Law Foundation of Nova Scotia. And otherwise, the funding is a bit of a patchwork, various grants and so on. We've recently requested an increase amount from the province on the basis that Lunenburg County has one of the largest populations and one of the largest geographic areas in the province. And the pitch that we made was that above and beyond the base amount of $25,000, that there be some kind of funding formula that acknowledges the differences in size. Oh, there we go. So our funding request this year is $544, unchanged from last year. But we can't say what our request will be next year, and we hope that the funding will continue in a stable manner. So thank you very much. And it looks like Staff Sergeant Paul Coughlin is here.
Yes, can you hear me? Can
Yes,
everybody hear
we
me?
can.
I'm so sorry there. I had some difficulty here and I got my daughter to help me. So I finally have a. First of all, good evening to everybody and thank you for giving me the opportunity to promote our senior safety program. So I won't repeat what Penny and Chris and Carol said, but I can tell you, like, from a policing point of view, our officers respond to many calls for service in the run of a month, many that involve seniors, but other provincial agencies like mental health calls, ambulance calls, fire calls. So we're always providing support to different agencies. And when we get into the area of seniors, like, our officers are not qualified to make assessments on seniors' well-being and their ability to stay home and when they need help. And we do have a lot of seniors that are not supported by community and not supported by family. So the opportunity to call senior safety coordinators in to make those assessments and provide the immediate service to seniors is very valuable to us. It allows us to get back on the road and do our job. And in knowing that the seniors that are in need are going to be taken care of in a professional way, and they're going to get their services met right away. So I don't think I have to ask you to support the senior safety program. I'm sure that you see the value in the program, and I'm just glad that you're able to help any way that you can. So that's all I have to say, and thanks for being patient with me.
Thank you for your comments. And thank you, Chris and Carol, for the work that you have been doing, and the work that the contribution that our council is making through Councillor Carver. Just before we go, I think Chris and Carol, you know most of the people on council from prior meetings, but we do have 3 new council members. Our deputy mayor is Francis Kangata, and we have Councillor Alice Burdick, who were new in the last election, both, as was Councillor Kelly Wilson. So in addition to the rest of us, these are the 3 new kids on the block, and we collectively look forward to working with you.
Yes, so I guess now would be a good time to extend an invitation. Tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m., we will be meeting with a couple of the counselors we've met at Modal, just to talk about the resources and supports we have. If anyone's interested in joining us, they can let perhaps Penny or myself or Carol know. Drop us an email and we'll send that invitation along to you. We really appreciate every opportunity we come. I enjoy coming to Mahone Bay. I feel like I'm coming home when I visit there. 2 things to tell you about that's happening right now is that if you know any older adults or their caregivers that would benefit from a face shield, these face shields were purchased through the United Way, through a grant. And for someone who is providing care to an individual that is hearing impaired, this sometimes is the best option to support communication. And we have about 40 of those to give away to seniors, and we are delivering them to the doorstep. And also we have face masks that are free and they're available, and they have a removable wire so that you can wash them easily and safely. And anyone who needs a face mask, please let us know and we'll drop one off to their doorstep. And this also was through the United Way.
Does anyone have any questions for Carol or Chris? Thank you indeed. Great job.
I think Councillor Alice.
Councillor Burdick has her hand up.
I just wanted to acknowledge the wonderful work that you all are doing. It's incredible and very helpful, and no questions right now, but I'm just really, I'm happy to meet you too. And thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet everybody for me, because I'm a little bit newer than Chris, but it's a real pleasure to go out and work the way that we do with our partners and our seniors. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Okay, let's move along in our agenda. Next item, I'm sorry. Okay, everybody's going waving goodbye. Next item on the agenda is correspondence action items. The first one is the REMO operating budget. CAO, would you like to speak to that?
I can just endorse the budget as it is presented there. I guess we've got a REMO representatives here besides myself, but if there are any questions about it, I can either answer them myself or I can take them back to Angela if I'm not prepared to answer them. As always, our share of budgets like REMO that we participate in with the other units in the county is correspondingly small.
Questions?
The only new comment, I guess I can add one new, well, it's not even in this budget, really. It'll be in our budget. So yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. I may have another comment about emergency services when we get to our budget process.
Okay. So Penny, I'm having problems with my mouse here. Must be the night for the amount from Mahone Bay is relatively minor. Mahone Bay's contribution is $573. No, third one down.
Yeah, that was the request from the last folks. This one is for $3,389.45, and that's up from sideways.
$288, I think.
Yeah, up from $3,101.23 last year.
CAO, would you prefer to leave that for the budgeting round to come, or would you take a motion tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually recommend council convey approval of this if you're comfortable. I mean, there's no significant change here, and we don't have enough expected change across the board that we would suddenly become unable to meet our commitments here. So I would suggest that the motion's in order.
Okay, Councillor Now?
Yeah, I would move that Mahone Bay Town Council accept the REMO budget for 2021-22.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burdick seconds. Is council ready for the question? All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is correspondence from the Talking Trees group requesting that their issue around trees and the urban forest be reflected in our developing strategic plan. Entertain a motion to pass this item on to the group coordinating the development of that plan. Councillor Carver?
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Feeney, or Deputy Mayor actually was just a tad ahead of you there, Councillor Feeney, thank you. Is council ready for the question? All in favor? That motion is carried. Let's go to item 4.3, the Clean Ocean Action Committee. There is a review going on concerning the moratorium on activity on Georges Bank. And this group is asking that town correspond with NSFM executive to reinforce the desire to have that moratorium extended. NSFM would then lobby the province for that. What is your wish, council? Councillor Carver.
Yes, I would make the motion that a letter go from council to NSFM in this regard.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wilson. Moved and seconded that the town will write to NSFM supporting the action. Is
sorry?
council ready? Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
I'm sorry, that's not the motion that I heard. What I heard Councillor Carver say is that we forward this letter to NSFM for their action. That's different from us recommending that they do something, because I, for one, am not in favor of municipalities getting involved in provincial and federal affairs.
Okay,
So if I heard the motion wrong, I'll rescind my secondary ship list.
what
That was the spirit of the motion, yes.
Yes, the spirit of the motion that the town of Mahone Bay would write to NSFM to express their support for extending the, or rather renewing the moratorium on Georges Bank and the offshore for oil and gas exploration and drilling.
Then I rescind my second.
Thank you. We will need a seconder. Councillor Burdick seconds. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the motion? Councillor Wilson.
I just have a comment, and I know this will fall probably on deaf ears, but I really think that as a municipal council, we should be sticking to the knitting of what we were hired to do, which is manage the municipality and its water plants and its electrical utility, and to try and stay away from dabbling in political issues that are really the purview of the province and the feds. And in any event, are none of our business because it's 600 kilometers away and has no effect on Mahone Bay.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
I hear you, Councillor Wilson. I think I would probably say it does have an effect on us. I think the question is, what kind of effect do we foresee if that happens? Anything that affects the oceans, anything that affects the potential of pollution in the oceans affects the entire world, not even just Mahone Bay. So from that perspective, I think we might, if we're taking an environmental stewardship and leadership with our strategic plan, we might want to think about how much or how far that goes. So I would be supportive of us saying something about it if we're in agreement that this is what we need to say.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Just one final comment, and that is, you may not all be aware of this, but in fact, there is a considerable body of research that suggests that 50% of ocean pollution is caused by seepage, and that drilling in the ocean actually relieves the pressure and reduces that seepage, and therefore reduces the risk for us all.
Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I think, over time, what I've observed is that municipal councils have been asked to become quasi lobbyists and or advocates for various groups who have a well, have an educated opinion on a particular topic. I think everyone on this council is well aware that council's taken a stand on climate change. We as a council in the last term took a stand on salmon farming. And there are any number of instances in the course of a calendar year where we've received letters from various lobbies looking for us to support one thing or another. My reticence is really out of a lack of knowledge. Like when I read that, I think to myself, knowing that not much about it, I would support the ongoing moratorium of deep water oil drilling on the Georges Bank, but I couldn't actually guarantee that I have an educated opinion about it. So I do think in this situation, I'd be more inclined to support the motion because I think that's probably where I stand on the issue. But to be fair, honestly, to everyone on council, when we get the agenda a couple days ago, we're forced to vote on it today, like there's no opportunity for due diligence. Like what I'd prefer to do in these types of situations, if we're truly interested, is let's ask Mr. Davis from the Clean Ocean Action Committee to come to council as a delegation and speak for 10 minutes on the topic. Council will at least have the opportunity to ask a few questions. And if they're inclined to educate themselves between now and then, fair enough. If they're not, because again, as Councillor Wilson said, I mean, this isn't a core town council issue. Then we can keep walking blindly through the night. So, but I think this idea that we're just going to blanket receive and forward under the mayor's and or council's endorsement responses on a regular basis, I think is challenging. This one, probably not so much. I mean, I think reasonable people would say this is probably a good thing to support. But honestly, from an ongoing basis, we could have 5 more letters next week on 5 different topics. And it's just, to be fair to councilors, it puts them in a difficult situation if they will put their hands right up, and as I am right now, it's like, I don't know much about this issue and not enough to have an opinion yet. I'd like to get informed, but not informed yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burdick.
We do have, does council have an opinion specifically about sort of open pen fish farming? I feel like this is in line with that. We do support the fisheries here. We all have varying levels of understanding about the issue, but to me, forwarding our support to the Minister of Energy and to forward it also to our Federation of Municipalities is not a super contentious issue. And I do think, like the Deputy Mayor was saying, that there are a lot of intersections here that I feel comfortable with supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Carver.
Yes, I'm actually supporting the motion to forward the concern to NSFM, but I don't think I would support a motion to advocate for advocacy with the minister. And the reason I'm supporting them, putting forward the motion to take this issue to NSFM is because I think that they will do the advocacy work that's required. And in the context of this council previous council having supported the motions to not in favor, we're on the record as not being in favor of open pen fish farming and in support of climate change measures. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And as for Councillor Wilson's point about what is the business of council, we're hired to take care of X, Y, and Z. We have many things on our agenda which fall into some gray area, including the services of the program we just heard from. So I think those are all reasons why we should be supporting this. It's because it's right. It's the right thing to do, to quote something that Councillor Feeney said last week. So those are my last words on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk?
Quick question then. If Councillor Carver's motion was in fact to forward the letter to the NSFM without a recommendation, is that what you were saying, Councillor Carver?
I think the issue was that Councillor Burdick referenced it going to the ministers, and that was actually a second request from John. So if I may say, I think Councillor Carver was moving on the first request forward to NSFM with support, but not on the second request to send it to the ministers.
Thank you very much. It's starting to get a little muddy over here.
I
Thank
went
you.
back and read John's letter for clarity.
We're experts at muddy.
Deputy Mayor?
So the conversation, I think the decision will be made by December between Ottawa and the province, so the letter says. I'm comfortable supporting it now, but I'm also cognizant of the idea that we need information about it and be comfortable about what you're supporting. So if we can, if there's room to invite these folks to come and present, that would probably be great. Probably inform what we need to do, and maybe it'll give us an opportunity to even have more support to the two motions rather than the one we're just supporting. So I would be open to both at this point.
So you're suggesting the motion that we would issue a statement of support to NSFM, but also one to go directly to the minister?
No, I'm saying that if the issue for council is we don't have information to make those two recommendations, that maybe we cannot. We just don't do the motions now and wait until we get more information by inviting these folks to come and present, if council wants that.
Mr. Wilson, or Councillor Wilson, if I could, when you mentioned about 50% of the oil pollution in the oceans is as a result of, I think you used the word seepage.
Correct.
Are we talking about oil that naturally seeps through cracks in the Earth's surface and not as a result of fracking or drilling?
Correct. As far to my knowledge, there is no fracking in deep water, but it's oil and light volatiles and methane.
Okay, thank you. So, anyone else? Is council ready for the question? Clerk, could you read the motion for us, please?
Certainly. That council write a letter to the NSFM to express their support for renewing the moratorium for Georges Bank on offshore drilling.
Okay. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Mayor, would you be prepared to hear another motion?
Sure.
So,
Always have time for a motion.
Mayor, I'd move that council directs staff to craft a letter to Mr. John Davis from the Clean Ocean Action Committee, extending an invitation at a later date to, to come to council and talk a little bit more about this issue.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Kangata? Council ready for the question? All in favor? The motion is carried. So we will invite Mr. Davis to come have a chat with us at some time in the future. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the next item, which is the Talking Trees group again. And they were talking about the cenotaph certification project. And would entertain a motion to refer that item to the Budget and Work Planning Committee. Councillor Carver?
Before a motion is heard, I would like some clarification about of any difference in this proposal from the one that was declined in July, because that
Last year.
was declined for reasons of safety, that there were risks involved in establishing a garden, but this proposal is for flower boxes, which is, I guess, a subtle difference, but I would like to know more about the safety issues. I suppose I could have waited for that question until there'd been a motion, but I'd be interested to hear from the CAO what the difference is.
CAO, would you please respond for that?
Yeah, I think this ultimately is a very substantially similar request to the one that was received previously. There's a change in terms of making garden boxes, which could be arranged off-site, would reduce any need for volunteers to come on site to tend to the garden. The big similarities, though, are around maintenance. So we are still anticipating a daily watering with this. And with the current intersection configuration, as it was noted last time in the financial analysis, there's a likelihood that we would be shutting down at least one lane of traffic in doing this. We're currently undergoing a safety audit, and our procedures around working in these kind of situations, you're sort of jogging out into the middle of the road and watching cars whizzing by. It's unlikely that we would be doing it with a single staff person conveniently. So I continue to have, expectations there would be a pretty considerable cost. Hence I would support referring to budget. But also on the safety side, I think the previous report notes some considerations. Predominantly, these come from the current configuration of the intersection. And I guess, understanding there's a motion to refer to budget, I'm happy to speak more to that in the budget process. But as council knows, we're undergoing a process of transportation planning. And I think it behooves us to put anything like this in the context of overall safety considerations around that intersection. And I think there is some more that we'll need to talk about in the budget process in that respect. So very similar, but at the same time, if it was referred to budget, I think there could be some more valuable discussion on that.
Councillor Feeney?
Mayor, I think this item and request was well reviewed last summer. And if I recall, staff did have a detailed report to council on this topic and shared with council at the time. Again, this was only last July, that, and kind of articulated the safety concerns in granular detail that the CAO reviewed this evening. Based on that report, that I understand all of the existing council may not have access to, I'd be prepared to refer to that item and move along. I think that I doubt that staff's recommendation will be different than it was last summer. And, I think there's going to be many opportunities for the council to support Talking Trees initiatives, including a new tree bylaw coming out in the next 90 days. So I think that we're ready to, personally, I'm ready to move along from this item. I think it was addressed last summer, and I don't think anything has changed that mitigates the safety issues that were well addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burdick, and then the Deputy Mayor.
Can I ask if there, to the CAO, if there is still a program for the hanging flowers happening? Because it seems like the essence of the request is about town beautification. I can't really remember if last summer that had continued to happen in town.
We haven't done a hanging flowers program recently. There have been requests to budget, I think, the last couple of years. They're always slightly different. There was some discussion earlier this year around the idea of the chamber encouraging flower basket donation or sponsorship program, but can't actually recall if that was touched on along with many other things in the letter the recent letter from the chamber that was referred to budget. I'll take a look back on that, but as always with all the requests, there's a financial component, but the hanging baskets probably is safer if we're if we're comparing the two things.
Deputy Mayor?
So I appreciate that this has probably come to council before, and you folks have discussed it and you made a decision last time. My thoughts about it is that by referring it to the budget process, it will give us a chance to be able to see, I guess, what staff had prepared last time and the question around whether it's substantially different now, and also give the new council an opportunity to make a decision. I'm assuming that's why the residents are sort of saying, well, there's a new council in place. Is this new council willing to walk with us on this journey? So that's why I was ready to sort of move the motion to get it into the budget process, and then we can get a chance to open it up and discuss it in more detail.
Okay, hold that thought, Deputy Mayor. Clerk?
I was going to comment on the hanging flower baskets. That just to fill in a little background information from a few more years back, that was actually a program of the Chamber of Commerce. It did become very expensive, is my understanding, because it's a lot of money and time and whatever just to water them all. So in addition to what the CAO was saying about donations for flower baskets, it was a large program. So again, everything else the CAO said about whether there's discussion coming up or not, but that was in fact a project of the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Councillor Now.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Feeney that, we had discussed this at great length. I don't see the staff report coming back this time that's going to be any vastly different from the last time with regard to the safety of the project, that type of thing. And I agree that, this could consequently have some very large financial consequences if we have to start shutting down traffic, get traffic control in, and do that every time we want to water the gardens. So I think it's something that we had discussed before and can be moved on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Feeney?
Mayor, I think the deputy mayor makes a good point. I think we can refer this along to the budget as he suggested. Gives everybody an opportunity to review the staff report from last summer and get everybody on the same page with the same information. So, it's not really fair that, some of council has a higher degree of familiarity than the entire council just based on the date of that recommendation. So, I think given the deputy mayor's advice on that, I think I'd be prepared to move that we forward this item to the budget process, and maybe the deputy mayor could second that, or he can make the motion and I'll second his motion. But I think that seems to me a reasonable way to proceed.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, I second that.
Okay. Moved and seconded that the item be referred to the budget process. Are ready for the question? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Let's go on to, we have 3 items for information purposes. What is your wish? Councillor Wilson. He's moving to receive and file, but he's doing it silently. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Burdick.
I was trying to do my best Carl Noss imitation too.
I'm sure Carl's sitting at home watching with bated breath. Okay. Is council ready for the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. The information items are filed. Let's go to our staff report. This is the first report of the month, CAO.
Yeah, first report of the month, meaning only the first section is updated with the motions from last meeting and any progress on outstanding assignments from council. But as always, I'll take questions on any part of the document if there are any, and I'll put it up on screen if needed.
Councillor Burdick.
I have a question about item 10 in the staff report to council. actions, council assignments to staff. It has come up before, but the discussion with the modal planning staff about the report for council about intermunicipal collaboration. There is actually now an intermunicipal working group through SHAC, so that we're starting to talk about things, but I think there might be a general sense that in order to move forward with ideas, it would be really great to know if there's a general agreement amongst the participating councils of the municipal units that that's a good idea. So I was just wondering what that sort of status is like right now.
Yeah, well, my suggestion would be that and I haven't been to Shaq's meetings lately, so sorry about that. I'm probably a little bit out of the loop, but I'd suggest they're probably pretty different areas. So we're doing the plan Mahone Bay review, and MODL is also undergoing a plan review process. So that will only be looking at land use with regards to housing. So I don't know. I'm sure SHAC is not limiting their conversation to land use. So I guess it would be based on intermunicipal housing, the provincial statement with respect to housing, and our requirements to take that into consideration in our plan review. Mahone Bay and MODL have pretty different context for the plan review, like a small town with really constrained geography versus a large rural area. So I don't know that we will have a lot of opportunities to utilize the same tactics, I guess, as it were. But we are just in the process of receiving the latest draft information from our contractor, Upland, and reviewing that with the planners at MODC who we contract. And so we'll be able to kind of have that conversation with MODL now that we have that information, and kind of see what opportunities there might be between us. But yeah, I guess I would just think it would be limiting to the conversation at Jack to put too much stake in what the plan review processes are going to be able to do for affordable housing. Not to undersell, we're trying, but I just think it's only one instrument.
Yeah, I do understand that. I just was wondering where that was at. So thank you.
Yeah, we're getting much closer now on our side. In the background, while we were workshopping the correct text for the background documents with Upland, they continued to work on the draft bylaw revision. So those will be coming back to the steering committee, I think, later this month for a first look, if I believe. So we'll be looping everybody back into that soon.
Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I just have one question under the capital section, kind of items 11, 12, and 16, which are three individual initiatives that
You're gone
really
mute, Councillor Feeney.
How's that sound?
Okay.
Better? Okay.
Maybe it's on my end. Is it not on your end?
Well,
No, my end?
I can hear him. I can hear him the first
I
time.
can hear him.
Cutting to the chase, Mayor. Items 11, 12, and 16, which are all capital related initiatives pertaining to the wharf. And it's been a while since I think we've talked about kind of our planned investments in the marina facility. Those are all appropriations that were made last year in the budget process. And I know in the intervening time that Development Nova Scotia is also come to the table with funding as well. So at a later date, sometime, over the next, 2 months, maybe, if Dylan, if you think you could craft a note back to council that just sort of explains the moving parts on who's funding what. So I know there's a backhoe at the end of the street, and every time I get a question about, is that something the town's paying for? Is that something the Marina Association's paying for? Is that something Develop Nova Scotia is funding? And I just think that it's just a little clarification around what the program is for the marina and who's writing the checks. I know council certainly has supported in the budget a number of initiatives, but if you look at 11, 12, and 13, it appears only portions of those projects are underway. So We don't need to get into it this evening, but maybe at a later date, Dylan, if you could talk about that, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, I don't mind providing a little bit of comment on it now, but I can also comment on it on a later date. So
Whatever's easier for you.
Number 11, replacing the floating wharves gangways, obviously particularly the one lost to storm relatively recently. That's been something that there's been an ongoing effort between the Wooden Boat Society and the town and Develop Nova Scotia to see if there'd be some provincial support. And the other items, numbers 12 and was that 15, those would be wholly the town's responsibility. 12 is largely complete at this point. Sorry, 12 and 16. 12 is largely complete at this point, and 16 is not. We've had an assessment done. It's looking like not required at this point. I'm still always given the question, something got on the list and then later on we look at it and people say it's not required. It sounds like good news, often a little bit suspicious of that. So prior to the budget, I'm going to look back into that one before I say that we should just take that off the list. But yeah, and so they're all moving ahead in their own way. And we'll have some more information for budget for sure.
But would it be fair to say that if you run into somebody on the street corner, that the town's financial commitments are still there? It's just that things got slowed down due to COVID.
We have a commitment to the structure. The floating docks, the town obviously supports, but it's, if there's an opportunity there to find some external funding, we'll take it. But the structure, ultimately we have a responsibility to keep up the structure that we own.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
No problem.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Now?
Yes, just a quick question in regard to the fire hall build. I understand that the construction right now is at a standstill because there's been no building permit issued as of yet. I've also heard of a couple of different projects where the building permits are long times coming. Do we know what the holdup is, Dylan, and why?
There has been some additional information the building inspector has requested. My understanding is it's forthcoming from Roscoe very soon, so it shouldn't be a long delay. But you're right that there is right now. They've gotten as far as they could get on the foundation work, and so I haven't heard a long delay. I've only just heard that there has been a delay and that they anticipated it not being a long one. So I think it's just complying with building inspector request for information. But if it turns out to be difficult to comply with or unanticipated, I'll certainly let everyone know.
Yeah, my understanding was that it was a building inspector request for plans for the sprinkler systems, which normally doesn't come in at this time before the building permit's issued, but apparently they seem fit to ask for it this time. So,
well, hopefully it's not going to be any issue, but if it does result in a delay, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. CAO, would you like a motion to receive your report?
Sure.
Will...
be in order.
Okay. Can we get a motion? Moved by Councillor Carver to receive or accept the report. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, are you ready for the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. Let's go to the next two items, 6.2 and 6.3 are both items I believe we have seen and discussed before. And both policy pieces have motions in them. If somebody would care to make a motion on the town council policy. I think it's in the text. It's included in the text of the material.
Yeah, it's on the screen there now as well. So yeah, as the mayor said, per our policy, we do have a first look at the policies prior to them coming back around. So this was on your last agenda. So it is just up now for someone to make a motion.
Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I'd move that council approve the town, pardon me, you took that right off the
Sorry,
page,
Joe,
the town council policy as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Now?
Trying to make sure David could see the seconder.
Councillor, ready for the question? Deputy Mayor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to say something. I'm bringing this back just because I want us to have hopefully some good conversation about it. One thing I will say is that today's meeting sort of feels very different from the meetings we've had before, and I'm grateful there's a little bit more clarity from you, Mayor. This is basically based on the emails we had back and forth around how and what happened at the last meeting. I have already shared my thoughts with the Mayor on this, but I believe it's important for me to bring this up because I think for me it will have implications for how we interact going forward. During the last meeting, Mayor, you ruled on a point of order raised by Councillor Carver, and I felt you did that without addressing your own misstep in the process. And from my point of view, you had recognized my turn to speak, and I was waiting to speak. The CAO tried to point that out, but you did not you did not readdress that issue. So that, to a certain extent, for me, felt very discriminatory. It felt very hurtful and very disrespectful. And the other piece for me around that is that it's not the first time I've felt overlooked in a meeting, and it doesn't feel nice when that happens. I don't think it will feel nice if it happened to somebody else. I know we can do better. It could have been due to technology, could have been there was lots on the agenda, but if it keeps happening to you, you start to question why it seems to be happening. And based on that, there was a question around, or it was raised that I was not following policy. And in my interpretation of the situation, I was actually following policy and you folks were not following policy. And so it's, I think in my belief about this is that policy guides us when we're having difficulty in having very good consensual conversations. That it's not the default to, and when I approach things, I don't do that. I believe I have in many situations allowed somebody who I knew had raised their hand, and I've been asked to speak before them, and I've said, "Oh well, Councillor Burdick or Councillor Carver was before me," because I believe that's how we should be handling these things. So I think we can do better collectively. The two things that I think I want to put forth is that I'm hoping that there's a realization that yes, we have policy, but policy does not address all eventualities. In this particular case, it would have been a tussle, us trying to go back and forth about what happened before the other, creating a situation that's not very helpful. I could have done that because I was following policy, but it's not very productive. And secondly, for all of us, if I realize that a fellow colleague of mine has, to a certain extent, has been overlooked and they were the very first one, I think using a point of order to try and stop them from talking, I don't think that's a very good way for us to approach our conversation. So I just wanted to put that out there as we discuss this piece.
And in response, Deputy Mayor, the notion of point of order is the norm in Robert's Rules of Orders. It is the norm that's defined in our policy for the conduct of council meetings. And it is always available to every councillor at any time that they feel that someone is not following the agreed to processes. Someone can call a point of order. So I appreciate your comments though. Councillor Burdick, this is on the motion, don't forget.
Yes,
Yep,
I do understand that, and I support the motion. I am in agreement that there has to be a balance between policy and the direction that policy provides, which is extremely helpful. and also the recognition that things can happen, that there can be repeated sort of occurrences that are not addressed by policy specifically. So in this matter, it's being brought up, and I'm grateful for it by the deputy mayor, because it is definitely worth acknowledging and working on for sure. So I do, it's an interesting question, how when the policy is simply that whoever is recognized speaks and the other person waits, what happens if that feels like it's not happening?
Okay. Any other comments on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. And the second one was the Supportive Workplace Committee policy. You have a motion, a suggested motion in your package. Perhaps CAO, you can put that on the screen. Councillor Burdick?
I would like to move that council amend the Supportive Workplace Committee policy as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilson? Questions or comments on the motion? If you're ready, all in favor? Motion's carried. We now have two committee reports, both of which you've been able to read. They were in your packages. Neither one contains a motion. Does anyone have a question on the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program monthly report? Okay. What about the South Shore Housing Action Coalition meeting of February the 3rd? Does anyone have any questions about that report? Okay. Thank you. I think that is the end of our regular business. We do have an in-camera session. We've got a fairly lengthy agenda on that piece. Before we go in camera, I would ask whether we have any questions from the citizens at home. The clerk is shaking her head rather emphatically. Either that or she's got that buzz in her ears again and she can't get rid of it. Hearing no questions. That was the buzz. That's Kelly, is it? Okay. Hearing no questions from the public, then we would entertain a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Carver, seconded by Councillor Wilson.
I would like to, oh, yes, I just want to recite the reasons why we're going in camera. Move that we go in camera to discuss contract negotiations, acquisition, sale, lease, and security of municipal property and personnel matters, all under the MGA.
Thank you. MGA Chapter 22 defines the 6 reasons for which we are allowed to go in camera. And those are 3 of them that you cited, Councillor Carver. Thank you very much. Okay, a motion to go in camera. Moved and seconded. All in favor? We are now in camera at 8:09, I might add. Kelly, would you disconnect us?
I jumped the gun and made you host, and now I can't stop the recording or the live stream.
I know. Tell me what I have to do here. I've never been the host before.